Father, we thank you for these meetings. We pray that we'll be truly listening, and having listened, we will see something has changed. And I'm reminded of a page in the Spirit Prophecy where she says, our religion would be changed. And that's what's happened. Let us understand through the reading of these words what has happened and what we need to do about it. And then this week we're beginning a new series. And I think I should say a few words as we begin so you know what's happening here. We have used the Spirit of Prophecy in lots of different ways. Sometimes we just read something and then we talk about it. Other times we read something and we just keep reading the Spirit of Prophecy. Because there are different subjects in the Spirit of Prophecy and you can't read them all the same way. Now, I was going through some old books that I've had since the seminary. And those are old books. And I was throwing them away. And all of a sudden, I caught the title of one book. It's a not very thick book, about a quarter of an inch. And I almost threw it away, but I caught the title. And I said, wait a minute, what did that title say? So I read the title, and I thought that is not a modern title. That is a Spirit of Prophecy title. So I looked to see who wrote it, and it was J.H.N. Tyndale. And I thought, well, that's not a name everybody recognizes. How come that book? Why did I buy that? So I looked inside, and it was from The Leaves of Autumn. And I thought, well, that's interesting. That's an old Adventist book. Well, I think I better look at that. So I set it aside. And then a week later, I started reading it. And I was amazed. I said, this book reads like the Spirit of Prophecy. This isn't picking things out. This is what the Adventists all taught. So it got my interest up. And when I was done with this book, I said, this book has to be put before our people. So I'm going to go right through it, and I'm just going to add my own thoughts to it so you take your thoughts into the book. The first thought I want to leave you is this. This book is from the Spirit of Prophecy, and every word of the Spirit of Prophecy is truth. Now, we all could say, yes, that's true. But we have a church of 20 million people. And all of them would say, oh, that's true. But how many of them have ever read it? And how many have read it as the truth? Now, let's get at that for just a moment here. We're going to look at every word in this little book. Now, you tell yourself as you're listening, you do not have an option to say, well, that's true and that's not true. That's true. This is true. No, every word from the Spirit of Prophecy is the truth. So you're going to have to decide something. You may not have decided it yet. I don't think you have. You decide that when you're listening to the Spirit of Prophecy, you don't have a chance to say, well, that's not true. You either believe in it or you don't. If you say you believe in it, then you must do what it says. Now, you think about that for a second. I'm putting something on you probably nobody else has ever put on you. You have to do what the Spirit of Prophecy says because it's from Jesus. It's like Jesus talking to you, and he does not make mistakes. So he's going to tell you to do something. He will tell you what Christians do and what they don't do. And you must decide whatever he says a Christian is, that's it. That's the way you live. There's no talking about it. There's no discussions. There's no whatever. You just do what Jesus says. Now, we're going to begin with one quotation from Youth Instructor, and we're going to spend a little time with it today. I'm going to go through it word by word by word. Then we're going to look at the paragraph carefully and see how it moves. And we're going to try to figure out what it's really saying. And you can take that as a way we will go through the book. We're going to be sure we understand the words, particularly the words as they were used in her day. Not what we think they mean, but what she actually meant. So this is going to be a study of Ellen White's writings because she was given the spirit of prophecy by Jesus. So we've got Jesus, we have Ellen White. We want to know what the words mean, what they say to us, and we're going to ask a question. Does the church teach those words that way today? And if you, through your study of this, find out the church has taken many of these statements and just forgotten them, what are we going to do? Are we going to keep supporting that kind of a church? What can we do? This is a wake-up call. And you can only do one thing with a wake-up call. Yes, we have to change our mind. So I'm not going to tell you what you have to change about it. I'm going to read the statements. Now, this book has a title. The title is on the front. It's Victory and Mastery Through an Understanding of the Son of God in His Humanity, the Pattern Man. Now that's the title I read when I almost threw this book away. And I said, wait a minute, that book said it right. That title is a true Spirit of Prophecy title for Seventh-day Adventists. So listen, let's read it again. And let's see what it says to us. Victory. Now, I don't want to start with wars here, but I have to say something. Victory and self-mastery is not righteousness by faith. So, immediately, you can see what this did to me when I read it. I said, wait a minute, what's going on here? So victory and mastery is not self-righteousness. Through what? Through an understanding. Now that word understanding is in John 17:3. You have to keep putting things in your head to make this all work. So victory and self-mastery through an understanding of the Father sending the Son. Is that what it said? No, it didn't. Through an understanding of the Son of God. Now, there is nothing in this title that says it's a metaphor. He was just pretending. The Father was just pretending. No, it says through the Son of God. And these people knew what they were saying. In His humanity. So we have in this title all the elements of truth. There's no give here. Through an understanding of the Son of God, that's Jesus in heaven, in His humanity. He put His humanity where the Son of God had been. Now, we're going to read a lot of statements in here on that. Jesus was still God. He was not just a human. He was a human in God. And then it said at the end of all this, the pattern man. Okay, so now we have the title of the book. This man went to Loma Linda University from 1908 to 1910. Okay. He finished the medical evangelism course. So he was trained to be a medical missionary. But most of the ministers of that time were. So he was a minister. And while he was a minister from that time on, 50 years, he taught these truths. Now, he quotes spirit prophecy, and I'm sure he picked up some new spirit prophecy as he went along. So they all get in here somehow. Now, that's as far as I'm going to go as far as backgrounds. He wrote for 50 years, he preached for 50 years. This is what he preached. There were very few Adventists at this time who thought anything different. But I have to tell you, there were some that didn't follow the spirit prophecy this way. We know some of them. They were the heads of Review and Herald, Signs of the Times, and they snuck in their thoughts. The men who were changing the church were moving right along. And the more of the old guys who died off, the new guys took over. We won't go through all of that. So we have a project here. I'm going to start reading, and you're going to start saying, I believe that, or I don't. Now, when you come to something that you have to say, well, I don't believe that, you better slow down and think about it. If you don't believe what the Spirit of Prophecy says, maybe you're not even a Seventh-day Adventist yet. This is not going to be easy for anybody because we don't hear these words anymore. And we have believed other words. So we're going to have to give up something. You better be sure what you give up is not the Spirit of Prophecy. All right. I'm going to start reading from the first page of the book. It's not even part of the book. He put it in the front. Now, this particular copy of the book, there were only 300 copies made in 1985. But the book dates way back. All right, I'm going to start reading from Youth Instructor, October 13th, 1898. Now, I want you to think about that for a moment. This book that he wrote dates from 1898. What happened that year? In 1898, in December, October, November, December, just 2 or 3 months away, Ellen White published Desire of Ages. Do you know what's in Desire of Ages? Yeah, that's where the modern people say Ellen White changed how she used the Son of God. They say she changed it in 1898, the month of December, by that book. And that's what Fromm says. And all the rest of the teachers today, all the ministers today say that. But I'm reading you something she wrote 2 months before. Now, you see how things happen. I didn't know this book existed until about 3 months ago. But this book has a lot of clues in it, what they taught. So I'm going to start reading the first sentence. The humanity of the Son of God is everything to us. Now, I want to ask you, 20 million Seventh-day Adventists in the world today, can they say his humanity is everything to us? It's not possible because they left out part of the sentence. The humanity of the Son of God. You see, if they leave that out, they can't use the rest of the sentence. So let's think about this for a moment. This is the way he's beginning this book. He's not writing anything against Seventh-day Adventists. It's only 1908 and on. He's saying what the preachers taught. And Ellen White was still alive. So what does that sentence say? The humanity of the Son of God. Now, she doesn't separate those out and make two different people, and one took the place of the other. She's saying the person who was the Son of God, reaching all the way back to the beginning. The humanity of the Son of God. Now, she did not say the Son of God is everything to us. You see, there are people who believe in the Son of God and humanity, but they don't know what they're saying. This says the humanity of the Son of God. So the first thing is, this man understood the difference. Even the Son of God people today don't understand what they're saying. So, the humanity of the Son of God, well, which came first? Yes, the Son of God came first. And he laid the Son of God, the humanity in there. But the humanity is everything to us. So we've got to get that. We can't say the Son of God is everything to us because there's the Father, and he didn't come. Jesus didn't come as the Son of God. He still was the Son of God. He didn't just disappear someplace, but he was the Son of God and humanity together. They were one person. But the Son of God did not reveal himself for himself. When he had a real problem to deal with, he did not give it to the Son of God to handle. The human handled everything for Jesus. So his humanity is everything to us. We won't understand that today, but we'll get it in our head and begin to understand as we move through the words that she wrote. All right. Now, his humanity is everything. Everything. Well, what's left after everything? So, it's his humanity that we're supposed to understand. Now, there are lots of people in this world that think they understand. They read Desire of Ages, page 48, and it says, he did not come like the original Adam. He came like we are today. And they say, well, he must have been a sinner. But then they run into the statements that say he never sinned. And they're left with a big confusion. And they never get out of it. They live in a confusion. We'll read the statements in here that say what actually happened. He became a human to live like a human and to die as a human. The God part of him didn't touch any of that. God was God, and God can't die as God. That's impossible. But we'll run into it. He was a human. He died as a human, but the God part died with him. See? We won't get too far into all these areas. We'll come into them in this little book. Okay, so we have one person that came while he was God to earth, and he had a body prepared for him. It was a human body. He was still God and he was still a human, but he lived as a human. Nobody could say he did anything for himself as God. He only did things as a man. So I'll just say that much before we hit the statements. So this first sentence says, the humanity of the Son of God. That should mean something to us now. Humanity, Son of God. The humanity of the Son of God is everything, everything to us. There's no part for God in that, not at the beginning. His humanity is everything to us. Now, who is us? The person that the humanity of Jesus is everything to. We can't just say, oh, that's me, we're Christians. No, that's not talking about people who say they're Christians. It's Christians who actually believe Jesus was a real human being and his humanity is everything to us. Now, if he's not everything to us, maybe we're not even Christians. Now, that's a real problem for people who don't believe. So we haven't even got past the first statement this man used. The first sentence is Ellen White, and the first sentence, he's part of the us. It's what he believed. Nobody else is in that sentence. So you can look in the churches today and say, well, that person doesn't believe in the Son of God. He's not everything to them. He's not the Son of God. So as you go through the people like that, and they will tell you to your face, I don't believe Jesus is the Son of God. We believe he's a metaphor. And I'll give you other things that they'll say also that's in here. So the first sentence that we're looking at is the humanity of the Son of God is everything to us. You think about that sentence. It is the golden chain. Golden chain, that's interesting. That binds our souls to Christ and through Christ to God, his Father. Do you see? You don't come to God the Father unless you go through Christ. People think they pray to the Father and then they tag the name of Jesus on it. No, that doesn't work that way. We pray to Jesus and then it goes to the Father through Christ. Now, this man knew these things, or he wouldn't have used these sentences. Notice how they stick together. Through Christ to God. This, through Christ to God, is our study, because the humanity of Christ is everything to us. 2 sentences. She's told us the whole plan of salvation already. Now, I know there are many people who have read this youth instructor, this one. I've read this in many books, but when I read it in this book and I realized he starts this book with this, I said, no, he's talking about real Adventists, not just people who read. So then, we've gotten 2 sentences down here. Christ was a real man. Now, I know most people believe Jesus is God, but do they really believe he was a real man? I'm not so sure about that one. There's something in that. He was a real man. He was born a real baby. He became a real youth. He became a real adult man. And he died as a man. At every stage, he was a perfect human. Now, there's a whole bunch of people that say, no, he was just like us. How could he be just like us? He never sinned. See? So those people are all wrong. Now, I hate to say it, but my friend Dennis Prevey is one of those. He's a scholar. He's a teacher in our schools. He teaches people that Jesus was just like us. That's impossible. Why does he call himself an Adventist? And do you know he really believes he's a real Adventist? And there are many like that among our teachers. So they're all on this weird trip, believing something that's not true. He was a real man, only he was a sinless man. He never participated in sin, not for 1 second. So if we understand that, we're still in this paragraph. Yet, he gave proof of his humanity by becoming a man. People don't say that today. They don't say becoming a man. He participated in manhood, but he did not become a man. Well, she says it right here. Yet he was God in the flesh. God in the flesh. It was not God sticking out here somewhere and looking at the man. That was not what happened. He was God in the flesh. When we approach this subject, humanity, we should do well to heed the words spoken by Christ to Moses. That was not the Father. People think that was the Father talking to Moses because the Father was in the Old Testament. No, it was Jesus. Jesus was talking to Moses at the burning bush. That was Jesus. When he told Abraham, he says, who do you think I am? And Abraham couldn't answer him too easily. So Jesus told him, I am. Well, that's what the person in the bush said. I am that I am. All right. Put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place whereon thou standest is holy ground. You are talking to the I am. We should come to this study with the humility of a learner. Well, I guess that lets us out of being a big teacher at the seminary. They're not learning anymore. And with a contrite heart. They don't have contrite hearts either. And the study of the incarnation of Christ is a fruitful field. You see, we've all been told, oh, the incarnation, that's a terrible mystery. Nobody can understand that. That's not what Ellen White says. we've got to forget all these weird things we've been told. Which will repay the searcher who digs for hidden truth. So we've got to give up that lie that we will never understand the incarnation. We will never fully understand it. I mean, anything about God we cannot fully understand. But we can study it and dig for hidden truth, and we will discover things in the Bible. We'll see how it works, and we will learn things from the incarnation. She wrote all of this in 1898. Now, did you see anything in there that said she gave up the Son of God? She never did. You can read all of her writings clear up to she stopped writing, and you will never see it. She always called Jesus the Son of God. So where do all these scholars go to study? They're not reading her books. Yeah. All right. We haven't even started this book yet, and look what we've learned. And that's what would happen if we read her books. Doesn't matter what book. You read any of her books, they will all tell us these things. Okay, now that we've gone through that, I didn't go through all the things we could do with that. We just enough to remind us of things that we know. Now I'm going to read it the way it was meant to be read, and you'll see it's all there to be read the way we know now. The humanity of the Son of God is everything to us. It's the golden chain that binds our souls to Christ, not to the Father, to Christ, and through Christ to God the Father. All right. This is to be our study. Now, thousands, millions of people have read that much and don't know what they read. Christ was a real man. Why should we think anything else? It says he was a real man. He gave proof of his humility by becoming a man, yet he was God in the flesh. When we approach this subject, we would do well to heed the words spoken by Christ to Moses at the burning bush. Put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place whereon thou standest is holy ground. We should come to this study with the humility of a learner, with a contrite heart, and the study of the incarnation of Christ is a fruitful field, which will repay the searcher who digs for hidden truth. So it's all there just the way it reads. We don't have to change a thing. All right, let's begin this book. I don't know how far we'll get. Review and Herald, February 11th, 1902. God created man a superior being. He alone is formed in the image of God and is capable of partaking of the divine nature, of cooperating with his Creator and executing his plans. Now, many people can read that little sentence, and after they've read it, they think they know everything about it. Well, let's go back and let's study this. God created man. God is Jesus. Jesus created man. Now, the Father was back there in heaven as a supervisor, but he didn't do the creating. Jesus did. He created him a superior being. Now, that one takes some thinking. He made him a superior being. That one's going to take some time. He alone, not anybody in the other worlds, not anybody called an angel. He alone is formed in the image of God. Now, there are not many Adventists who know that Jesus created man a superior being. Man is